Warning: viewer discretion is advised. Hi friends, welcome to Meals to Unalive For, where we talk about a true crime case and make a death row meal from scratch. I'm your host, Jody Breton, and if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. You guys have been bugging me to do this one, so today we're talking about Aileen Wuornos. Honestly, after doing research about Aileen, I just feel bad for her. A lot of people failed her, and while it's not right what she did, I can sympathize with what happened to her as a child. So let me just jump right into it. Aileen was born February 29th, 1956 in Rochester, Michigan. Aileen had an older brother, Keith, and their parents were Diana Wuornos and Leo Pittman. Aileen never met her father since her parents separated before she had even been born, and he ended up unaliving himself while serving a life sentence, and I'm going to do a little side episode, so look out for that. I just want to point out that Diana, which is Aileen's mother, married at 14. She had Keith at 15, Aileen at 16. So it's safe to say that she really wasn't ready to be a mother and a wife. And I mean, who would be? None of us have any business doing all of those things as young teenagers. It was said that Diana really tried to make things work after her and Leo split up, but in January 1960, she dropped off both of her children with their maternal grandparents. Lowry and Britta took the kids in, and while one would hope that they would be provided a better life, that was not meant to be. Both of Aileen's grandparents were alcoholics, and it was believed that Aileen's grandfather started sexually assaulting her from a young age. In school, Aileen was known to be a loner, and the other kids bullied her a lot. To get attention, Aileen started doing sexual favors in exchange for things, or just attention in general. The only people who Aileen were close with was her grandmother Britta and her brother Keith, and unfortunately, she would start an incestual relationship with her brother. Even though Britta doted on Aileen, she also abused her, and some say that Britta knew that her husband was abusing Aileen, but never put a stop to it. It's safe to say that everyone really failed in Aileen's life. She didn't have a single healthy relationship in her family, even her brother, like it was an incestuous relationship. Same thing with her grandfather, and even her grandmother abused her, so everyone failed here. In 1971, Aileen's grandfather started introducing her to his friends, and one of these men assaulted 14-year-old Aileen, resulting in her getting pregnant. She was bullied even more for this, and no one believed that she was assaulted. Everyone just assumed that it was another teenager's baby. Aileen sought refuge at a battered women's shelter, and there she gave birth to a baby boy, and he was immediately given up for adoption. After giving birth, Aileen returned home, but shortly after her grandmother passed away from liver failure, and this devastated her. Aileen began running away, sleeping wherever she could in parks or on bus stations while trying to finish high school. In 1971, at 15, Aileen set out hitchhiking, trading sex work for whatever she needed, eventually landing in Colorado. There she found camaraderie in a local biker gang. They accepted her, and that's really all she needed at the time. Over the next few years, Aileen had the occasional spat with the law, mostly for petty theft and bar fights. Aileen wasn't arrested for sex work, which is ironic considering that was by far the most dangerous. She would stand on the highway near an exit ramp and solicit clients. She would charge as little as $30, and I guess because of her location and low prices, she built up clients. And just as a side note, $30 in 1975 would be equal to $178 today, just to give you guys an idea of how much she was charging. It wasn't much. In the winter of 1976, at age 20, Aileen hitchhiked to Florida. This made it easier for Eileen to survive because of the tropical weather in Florida and the lack of harsh winters. Soon after relocating to Florida, she meets a 69-year-old yachtman, Louis Fell. No one knows how this couple met, but just a few months after meeting, the couple marries. Just 9 weeks after getting married, Louis filed a restraining order against Eileen, saying she had beaten him with his own cane. It's not funny. Domestic violence isn't funny. And on a separate occasion, threw a cue ball at him. The marriage was annulled, and days after, Eileen found out that her brother had passed away from throat cancer. Eileen was devastated, especially since she didn't even know that Keith had been sick. For the next 5 years, Eileen would continue her downward spiral of sex work, petty crime, and substances. By 1981, the 25-year-old robbed a convenience store in nothing but a bikini. She had no getaway car and no shoes, so police caught up with her pretty quickly. She had just been walking on the side of the road with a gun in one hand and the cash in the other. As a result, Eileen would spend the next 3 years in prison, but she really thrived finding a community among other women. It was about then when Eileen started exploring her sexuality, because up until now, it had just been about a transaction and never about pleasure. In 1983, at 27, Eileen was released from prison, but now she started going by the name Lee, and although she still did sex work, she sought companionship with other women. In the spring of 1986, Eileen fell in love with the hotel maid by the name of Tyra Moore. The couple lived in a rundown motel called the Fairview near Daytona. As the 1980s came to a close, it became harder for Eileen to get work. Alcoholism aged Eileen prematurely, and a lot of her clients were military, so when the Gulf War started, she lost a lot of her clients since they had been moved. The couple was struggling financially, and one day Tyra tells Eileen not to come back without money for food and rent. On November 30th, 1989, Eileen steps onto the shoulder of Highway 75. A car eventually pulls over for her, and she gets into Richard Mallory's car, a 51-year-old electrical store owner. Richard drove the two to a secluded area where the two wouldn't be bothered. Eileen had no idea that Richard had just been released from prison after serving 10 years for sexual assault. We really only have Eileen's story to go off of, but she says that they started drinking and Richard told her that he was a sadist and that he would only be aroused if she was in pain. He beat her, tied her to the steering wheel of his car. He said, "You'll do anything I want, otherwise I'll unalive you." He then assaulted Eileen, and she said she remembered she better fight or die. She waited until he was walking to the trunk of the car. She slipped her bonds and grabbed the pistol she kept in her bag. Richard flung the door open to stop Eileen, but he was too late and she shot him 4 times in the chest. After he was unalived, Eileen robbed the man. She put his body in the car, drove to a junkyard, and put his body underneath a ratty carpet. Eileen drove the car home and told Tyra everything. They dumped the Cadillac at a beach and hiked back to the hotel. Deputies did find the car the next day, but they found the half-empty bottle of vodka and figured Richard was just sleeping off a hangover. December 13th, 1989, a couple locals found Richard's body at the junkyard. Police figured it was a robbery gone wrong and the case went cold. Eileen did sell Richard's camera, but she had to provide her fingerprints just in case the camera was stolen. On the morning of June 1st, 1990, a surveyor called police. He had found a body just across the Florida state line. The body was a white man in his mid-40s. He was completely naked except for a baseball cap with 6 bullet wounds in his chest. A few days later, on June 6th, another John Doe was found in Pasco County. This body was so badly decomposed that they couldn't get fingerprints or even get an estimate time of death. However, they would determine that the bullet holes in his chest were from a .22 caliber pistol, just like the John Doe and the Richard Mallory case. On June 7th, the first John Doe found by the surveyor was found to be David Spears, who had been missing since May 19th. At this point, Aileen and Tyra crashed a car in a neighborhood and then dumped the car. Police ran the plates of the car and found that it belonged to Peter Seams, a 65-year-old that had been missing for almost a month. Some people in the neighborhood saw the women leaving the scene, so now police had a description. July 30th, 50-year-old Troy Burris never came back from his deliveries, so worried, his manager called around looking to see if he had gotten into an accident. His manager discovered that he hadn't made it through all of his deliveries, and the next morning police found the truck abandoned off-road 19. Aileen later confessed and claimed that it was in self-defense. Troy's body was found August 4th, and he was so decomposed that he had to be identified by his wedding band. He had also been shot with a .22. Aileen's next victim would be a 56-year-old Charlie Humphrey, a retired Air Force major and former police chief. He had been found in Marion County on September 12th. He had been shot 7 times with, once again, a .22. Aileen would claim her final victim on November 17th. 60-year-old Walter Antonio was found in a ditch the next morning, naked and shot to death. A task force was put together, and it clicked that the killer was probably a woman and the ones who fled the car accident. So police decided to release the sketches of the 2 women to the news. When Aileen saw the sketches, she threw her .22 off the Rose Bay Bridge to hide evidence. When the sketches hit the paper, Tyra left Aileen and went to go live with her sister in Pennsylvania. Aileen was absolutely devastated by this. Tyra was her soulmate, and to her, it was the end of her life. Detectives got the idea to check the local pawn shops since all of the men had been robbed. Police found Richard Mallory's camera that Aileen provided her prints for, and they were a match to the print found on Peter Seams' car. On the evening of January 8, 1991, 34-year-old Aileen was drinking at the Port Orange pub. 2 men approached Aileen and even bought her a beer. Little did she know that they were undercover cops. Police confirmed it was Aileen and arrested her the following day at the same bar. 2 detectives visited Tyra, and she told them everything she knew. They offered her immunity in exchange for her testimony, and she took it. Police had Tyra call Aileen to get her to reveal information. Tyra told her that she was worried that she would be implicated, and Aileen promised that she would confess, and she did just that the following day. Aileen's story got a lot of attention, and she freely told her story. The only issue was that it would constantly change. Sometimes she would shoot the men in cold blood. Other times she shot them in self-defense. Nobody really knew for sure. During Aileen's trial, she was heartbroken to find that Tyra was testifying against her, saying that she was dangerous. Aileen was sentenced to death. She waived her right to an appeal, and she spent 10 years on death row. Right before her execution, Aileen was interviewed. She was asked if she had been betrayed by everyone she trusted. She said, "That's right, I was. That's why I don't care if I leave this planet." In the interview, she also launched into a conspiracy theory that the police framed her and that the prison was torturing her through some pressure being released into her cell. On October 9th, 2002, Aileen Carol Wuornos was executed via lethal injection. Her last words were, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie Big Mothership, and I'll be back by 9:47 a.m. I think it's safe to say that towards the end of Aileen's life, she was really suffering mentally, just judging by all of her statements and the conspiracy theories that she was going through. Aileen didn't have a last meal. All she had was a cup of coffee. However, I feel like you guys wouldn't want to just watch me pour a cup of coffee, so I decided to make a cake with her death date on it. It is a homemade carrot cake with cream cheese frosting. For this last meal, since it was really just coffee, I would give it a 2. If we were rating the carrot cake as well, I'd probably give it like a 4 or 5, but that's not what she had. What did you guys think about this case? I honestly feel terrible for her. She had a very hard childhood. It does not excuse the things that she does. Do you think that maybe the first victim was in self-defense? I kind of think that. I think that maybe the first one was in self-defense and the other ones just kind of spiraled out of control as she got more mentally ill, but that's just my opinion. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.